Good afternoon, folks. This is Kimberly Jesika reporting in live today from Hollywood, California, and I am sitting here with an amazing young woman that's just courageous, and she's done some amazing things in life, and she's an award-winning author and a seasoned journalist herself. She's covered a lot of big-name Hollywood people for over a decade. Basically, she's written a book, and I'm just really happy to be here on the line today with none other than Liz Crokin. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. It's Liz. Is it Crokin or Crokin?
It's Crokin. You got it.
Crokin. Yay! How are you today, Liz?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Liz, I mean, you have done some amazing things. You have this amazing book out. So, let's have a chat. You have a great book out called Malice, and you're a journalist. You've been in a lot of major press, from U.S. to Chicago Tribune to Pop Dust to the Daily News to In Touch to Star. You've been all over the place. So tell us about your journey, Liz, because you have an amazing story.
So, yes, I went to college at the University of Iowa, and I studied journalism and political science, and I started my career out of college in Washington, D.C., and I worked and reported in the White House and stayed in D.C. for a couple of years. Then I ended up moving to Chicago, where I covered crime in Chicago. And then I transitioned to entertainment reporting. I got my own celebrity gossip column in the red-eye edition of the Chicago Tribune, and I did that for 7 years. And I started breaking a lot of celebrity stories, and so that got me attention from magazines such as Us Weekly, In Touch Weekly, Life and Style, Star Magazine. So over the years, I've worked for many of those publications as a journalist or an editor. And I've traveled the world covering celebrities in some of the crazy places, such as, everything from a small, little, tiny, country town like Kentwood, Louisiana, where Britney Spears is from, to Europe, to, chasing down Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie in the Galapagos Islands, in Ecuador. I've just done it all. I've seen it all. And it's been a really fun job to have. And I eventually
living my dreams.
Yes, living the dream. And I eventually moved to LA and to work full time for the celebrity magazines. And in 2012, my whole life dramatically changed. I started dating a man who I believed to be a wonderful person. He was very charming and fun and funny and charismatic, and he was kind of a high-flying millionaire type of guy, very adventurous, and he was great on paper. And I fell head over heels in love with him. And about 6 months into my relationship with him, I started getting really ill, and I started developing a lot of symptoms that I initially thought were for a urinary tract infection or a yeast infection. And it turns out that I had neither of those. And I ended up eventually getting diagnosed with an STD, which was genital herpes. And that the herpes infection progressed into, because my treatment was delayed and obstructed because I didn't know I had an STD, and my then boyfriend lied to me about having STDs, so that delayed and obstructed my treatment. So since my treatment was delayed for this STD, which is sadly very common, it progressed to meningitis, and then it progressed to meningoencephalitis, and that is a potentially fatal disease, and it swelled my brain so badly that my brain got pretty badly damaged from the disease. And initially, when I was sick, I was unable to do much. I could barely read and write the same way. I couldn't even sit up in a chair because my brain was so swollen that the pressure from sitting vertically was causing such tremendous pain that I couldn't do it. So I literally went from, making six figures, living the dream life in Hollywood, walking red carpets and, traveling to beautiful, wonderful places for my job, being happy, healthy, to severely ill, disabled, brain damaged. I went from making six figures to going six figures into medical debt. I had to go home and live with my parents for a while because I couldn't take care of myself. And I lost my job. I had to go on disability, welfare, and the incident almost completely destroyed my life. So, needless to say, that was a very, very rough time period in my life. But I slowly, during my recovery, as I started to get better and better, I started working on my novel, and I took action to pursue civil and criminal charges against my fiancé for what he did to me, because what he did to me is a crime in almost every state, including the state of California, and it's considered a sexual assault. So that was...
But what a lot of people don't realize, Liz, is that there is a statute of limitations on the tort. They don't realize, and so it makes you wonder, how does it work for somebody that does not realize it till years later? How can they even go back and handle that? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't even realize that there's a statute of limitations on tort.
And there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be. There should not be. That is a sexual crime. That is sexual assault. That is a sexual crime.
And whether you're a child who's sexually molested by an adult, or you're a rape victim who doesn't know you're a rape victim because you've been drugged and have no memory of the incident, and maybe you find out 10 years later that a rape happened. I mean, there's so many reasons that there should be no statute of limitations for people who are victims of rape and sexual assault. There is a movement to try to change that. And you have to keep in mind that a lot of people who are victims of various forms of sexual assault, especially children, they block it out. So some people don't even realize or remember that they've been molested, raped, or something sexually.
Shame is so great, that they try to just bury it. They live a life of shame.
Exactly. So I firmly believe there should be absolutely no statute of limitations for any kind of rape or sexual assault. And there are people that are trying to change that, and hopefully, in our lifetimes, we will see that those laws will be changed, because they need to be, and they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous.
And they cause devastating damage that's irreparable. Right now, there is no cure for HSV-2. So, for some people that end up with something like that, they look at it, they internalize the shame, and a lot of women, you just have no idea the amount of women's sex lives that have been just cut off. They just never had sex again. They never, I know people that's like, 30 years, 40 years go by, and they just never went back. They just went to religion, or they,
They're scared, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed. I've had so many women and some men too, who have contacted me from literally all over the world, who've gotten, some kind of STD, usually herpes, some women told me they had barely left the house, in 5 years, because they're so upset and they're so ashamed and they're so depressed. It's really a horrible thing to have happen to you. And it not only does it cause physical, damage to your body, it causes sometimes even worse, psychological damage to your body.
Oh, spiritual too. Spiritual too. It rapes your soul.
Exactly. And a lot of people who've been a victim of, a sexual assault, including myself, have really bad PTSD. And PTSD is a real thing, and it can be so debilitating. It's horrible. And
I was in the military. Trust me, I know about PTSD.
Okay. So you know.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and it's horrible. It's horrible for anyone.
It leads at least shock, trauma, PTSD. It brings mental illness. If you've never had a mental illness before, you definitely got one now. I mean, it brings a plethora of a lot of things, and I'm really glad that, you know, you're coming forward. And just in general, I mean, I worked with teenagers for years, and, you know, when I would sit there and I would counsel the girls, and they would come back and say they have HSV-2 or they HPV or chlamydia or gonorrhea or trichomonas, I mean, you would think that the world was ending the way that these girls were feeling. And then the boys would come back, or the guys would come back and say, well, they said I don't have it. So that's like more injury. So that's why I feel that this should be made a sex crime, because there should be some base of responsibility, and that responsibility is not happening. It's just not happening.
Yeah. It is a sex crime, but the problem is that it's only considered a misdemeanor in most states, and the only STD that you can knowingly expose and infect someone with without telling them is HIV. That's considered a felony. So for people like me who didn't get HIV but got a disease that was arguably more debilitating than HIV, because HIV has had, there's so many advanced. I know people that have HIV and they don't have any of the physical side effects that I have to deal with on a daily basis, because the medicine's so advanced, and it can you really can lead a normal life if you have HIV. But there's no protection for people like me who get other kinds of life-threatening STDs from sexual predators. It's considered a misdemeanor, and it's really hard to get a detective that's really willing to investigate the case, and it's really hard to get a DA that's going to spend the time to prosecute. I've been dealing with this for 4 years now, and I've reported my situation to multiple police stations and contacted multiple DA offices, and I even know other women that my ex has infected with not just herpes, mind you. I've heard chlamydia, encephalitis, herpes 1, herpes 2, obviously meningitis. I've heard, he's a serial sexual
He was just
predator.
a walking death trap. Sounds like this guy's a death trap, literally.
Yes. But, it's so far, nothing has happened on the criminal side. I think that once I get more exposure for my story, more people come forward, there'll be so much pressure, public pressure and political pressure for the authorities.
I mean, that could have been a class action lawsuit. If you had more than one person come together, at least 3 people, 4 people, that can turn into something class actionist, couldn't it?
It could have. After I went forward, I'm in the process of suing him, and my case has been going on for 4 years, so it just wouldn't make sense for me to join forces with anyone else. And I don't know anyone else that he gave herpes, meningitis, and encephalitis to, which is completely different than like chlamydia or. It affects
people differently. It destroys your immune system. It affects people differently.
But I do know that I just actually found out not too long ago that there was another woman that he infected with herpes who came out after I came out. I think that she came out because I came out, and I don't even think that she necessarily knew that he gave her herpes until I came out, because I'm sure he lied to her just like he lied to me and all my doctors. And like he also lied to his ex-wife, who he also gave herpes to, because I had a conversation with her. But apparently he settled with her out of court. So there has been at least one other person that he's settled with for giving an STD to. So, but yeah, it's a nightmare, and there needs to be harsher punishment for sexual predators who are spreading diseases and committing sexual assault against women.
Yeah, that's definitely sexual assault. And knowingly, you know what I mean? And even if you didn't know, when you find out afterwards that you did it and you come back in a disrespectful way, that's still sexual assault. So, and wow.
And my ex took it a step further. When I was in the Cedars-Sinai Hospital in the emergency room, and my doctors suspected that my meningitis was caused by an STD, but initially all my STD tests were negative, and they said, look, even though you're negative now, you could be positive in a week. If you've just been infected, the antibodies are still forming, and we won't know for sure for 7 more days. So they're like, we need to know who you slept with. And I'm like, well, I've only slept with one person, that's my boyfriend. And he says he doesn't have anything, and he's clean. And they're like, well, no offense, we don't buy it. We've seen it all here. We need to talk to him. So several of my doctors talked to my then boyfriend and asked him if he could have exposed me to an STD, and he said no. So they ended up letting me out of the emergency room early, and they said that, if you had herpes meningitis or syphilis meningitis, that causes the most brain damage, and if you've been exposed to herpes or syphilis, we keep you in here longer. But since they didn't think I had been exposed, they let me out early. So my ex took it a step further. Not only did he infect me, but he further obstructed my treatment by lying to my doctors, which in effect promoted or provoked them to release me from the hospital early. And since I wasn't getting the care I needed, my brain damage got worse and worse and worse and worse. And here I am 4 years later, and every day I'm still struggling with neurological problems from the damage, the disease that he gave me did to my brain. So he didn't just knowingly expose and affect me. He took it a step further by actively obstructing and delaying my treatment.
My God.
So he's a real special.
He's a special case. He's definitely a special person. This is really, really gnarly what he did. There's not even any words. Has he been picked up? And this is the type of criminal you just need to have locked away. Has he been picked up? Where are you with the case now?
It's been going on for 4 years. The civil case has been going on for 4 years. My trial is going to be in LA Superior Court, but it's been continued twice, which is frustrating. It was the date that I had where my trial was supposed to begin was this past April, and it got delayed again. We did depose my ex recently, which was just a joke. He just sat there and lied through his teeth. But we deposed him once. I think we're going to depose him again. And then my new trial date is December this year, and from what I'm hearing, it won't be continued again. So hopefully by the end of this year, my trial will be over, and I'll be able to rinse my hands of this person, this trial, and all of the madness from that for once and for all.
So how is your health doing now? It seems like you're doing a lot better. How is your health doing now?
I'm doing a lot better, but like I said, the damage of the disease did to my brain has given me a lot of ongoing neurological problems that literally affect me every day. So it's hard for me to function like a normal human being. So, for example, I have photophobia, which is an extreme sensitivity to light. There's nothing wrong with my eyes, but my vision is sensitive and it's off and it's blurred because your eyes are connected to your brain and my brain's damaged. So it's hard for me to stare at a computer. I'm a writer, but it's hard for me to stare at a computer for a long period of time. It's hard for me to be around bright light. It's hard for me to go to concerts. It's hard for me to be in bright sunshine. It's hard for me to, watch a sunset. It's hard for me to do a lot of things that normal people take for granted. I'm also extremely sensitive to sound because of the brain injury. So when I go to a restaurant, I have to sit at a table that's not in the loud area. I have to sit in a corner, and, I often end up having to switch tables, or sometimes I've even just had to leave restaurants because that are too noisy, because it's literally just painful to my head. It's not even just irritating. It's painful to be in loud environments. So, a little things like that affect me on a daily basis, and it makes it a lot more difficult to do normal things that most people take for granted. So, it's hard. I struggle with headaches and head pain every day. But over time, it does get better. My vision, my left eye has gotten a lot better. It's still pretty bad in my right eye, but my left eye has gotten a lot better. So it is getting better, but when you have a brain injury, the recovery process is so slow. The brain can rewire itself and it can heal, but it takes so much longer to heal than any of your other organs in your body, whether it's, a broken bone or when you're recovering from a surgery. And I've had multiple surgeries. I've had broken bones. Brain injuries don't even compare to any of the other medical problems I've had in my life. It is a beast dealing with a brain injury. But, like I said, I try my best to stay positive, and I've learned what I can and can't handle, what my body can and can't handle. I require a lot of sleep, and, there's some situations that I just avoid altogether because I know that it's going to put me in pain and hurt my head. So, and that's just life, though. You just kind of got to make the most out of a really bad situation and try your best to carry on and stay as positive, and hopefully one day I won't have any of these head issues, but it's unclear whether or not that day will ever happen. So, we'll see. We'll take it one day at a time, but things have gotten a lot better, and I'm grateful for that.
What you've gone through, it sounds like it could be a lifetime movie, and I'm saying that from a respectful place. I mean,
yeah.
I think that they need to do something more with this book. Serious here.
Oh, my gosh, completely. I mean, I've heard that so many times, and I have 2 movie production companies that are interested in buying the screen rights. So that's definitely in the works. My goal with this book is to turn it into a movie, and the book is actually a part of a trilogy. So I'm writing the sequel now, and after the second book, there'll be one more book. But I initially was actually writing the book as a screenplay, and I was then advised to put it on as a book first and then work on the screenplay and, go down that route. So, but yeah, it would be, let me tell you, a fantastic movie. It would blow any Lifetime movie you've ever seen, out of the water.
It needs to happen, though. It really needs to happen. I feel it needs to happen because a lot of women are suffering. And, with the way that things are happening today, when you look at the news, I almost feel like every time I watch the news, a woman has gotten raped, or even with the college guy that got 6 months, and then it was reduced to 3 months. All he's got to do is, serve 3 months, because, he's a college guy, and his father doesn't want his son's life ruined, and his mother feels that he won't make it in prison. I'm like, okay, but, this girl said she couldn't feel herself when she touched herself after he did what he did. Do you see what I'm saying? Even the guy that, that killed his girlfriend that was a paraplegic, and, he took the legs off in court and walked in court so that, to gain sympathy that, he shouldn't, he shouldn't be going to jail for a long time because, he'd suffer. Well, the girl isn't breathing anymore. And this is not a woman hates man type of thing. This is serious issues that women deal with that needs to be addressed. Attention needs to be brought to it. Not only that, but there needs to be laws put in place to offer some sort of reparations and accountability. That's how I feel.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. I mean, we as a society need to take these issues more seriously. And
it's not. And I thought that we had gotten a long way, but from what I'm seeing, like I said, with the 6-month sentence, with what you're going through, some of this stuff is open and shut. There's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to debate for 4 years. It's done. It's done. It's done. Here's a check isn't going to fix it, but it's some sort of reparations. And maybe you should spend, maybe 6 months in jail and get some counseling and may not to have sex for a while until you take some responsibility. There's definitely a character issue, a psychological issue that this person is dealing with, a character issue that this person is dealing with, maybe a spiritual issue too, because normal human beings don't go around destroying other human beings. That's just not normal.
No. And there needs to be more accountability with law. Exactly, and there needs to be more accountability with law enforcement that don't take rape victims seriously. There needs to be accountability with this joke of a judge who gave this disgusting sentence, which there is such outrage. There's a petition to get him
6 months
removed from the bench. He probably should.
I signed it. Here, I let everyone know I signed the petition.
Thank you. I signed it too. But I just read that there was another sexual assault case that he was supposed to preside over, and he's been removed from that case. So at least there has been enough people that are standing up for this poor woman and speaking out against how horrendous it is that this judge gave this sexual predator who's been charged with rape such a light sentence. There needs to be more outrage. People need to keep pressure on these corrupt politicians, these corrupt...
I mean, they made more outrage about the gorilla being shot, not just saying that that's less. Do you see what I'm saying? They made more outrage about the lion Cecil being shot. And, versus women that, give birth and, are very important, another important species in the human race. So it's just really interesting to see social media has really brought what America's really thinking, what the world is really thinking to the forefront versus when social media wasn't there, you just would think that people are, quote, good people and they don't agree with it. But you'd be surprised at the amount of people that support domestic violence, that support rape, that sympathize with domestic violence, that sympathizes with rape, and sympathizes with people that are sexually harmed, and say, you deserve it, you were a whore, you brought it on yourself. You should have been over there, you should have been drinking, you shouldn't have had that short skirt on, you should have known better, you should have known that you had something. The list goes on and on and on. I've been just shocked with what I've seen on social media. I'm like,
I agree.
It's unbelievable.
When I first came out with my, when I first went public with my lawsuit, and they were very few and far between, but, there were some journalists that had covered my story, and there was a press release out, and so everything was public, and some of the comments that I would read about people commenting on my story were just so disgusting.
It was really bad. They knew you had been with you and that you deserved it, that you brought it on yourself, and that's what whores it. It's unbelievable. You're not the only person I've seen this. I've seen this happen to other people. And, she was a whore. She brought it on herself. How does she know he gave it to her? I mean, they sympathized and found excuses for and loved the perpetrator. It was unbelievable.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder who these people are and, like, what have they done in their personal lives that would make them want to protect a sexual predator and a rapist. Mm-hmm. So it's so disturbing. But I think that there are more and more women and victims speaking out against these kinds of things, and more people are getting outraged. Hopefully this judge will get removed. And, I'm working actually I'm involved in multiple TV productions and 2 documentaries that bring attention to sexual harassment, sexual assault. There's one documentary that I'm featured in. It's called You Slut, and it talks about rape, sexual assault, and slut shaming. And they cover sexual assault and rape victims in the United States. And this summer the producers have been traveling to Europe, talking about the kinds of sexual assaults that are committed on women in Middle Eastern countries, in India, and so there's a broad spectrum it covers a broad spectrum of the different kinds of sexual assaults and that go on all over the world, and the different levels of societies that have tolerances for these kinds of horrendous crimes. And some of these countries allow rape. It's
they allow it
in some Middle Eastern countries. In some Middle Eastern
countries. If a girl turns down an arranged marriage in India, certain parts of India and in the Middle East, she could get burned alive. Like, a girl was literally burned alive by her own mother. I mean, seriously.
Exactly.
She was burned alive by her family,
Exactly.
So, it's
outrageous. We're actually, the producers are going to India, and they're covering a girl who was burned for, I can't remember the specifics of the story, but for marrying outside of her marriage, or marrying someone that she didn't want to marry, or something crazy like that. But it's just incredible what goes on, and so many people have no idea how women are treated in other countries. And I mean, in some Middle Eastern countries, if you're raped, it's your fault, and you can be punished by flogging.
A girl just got charged with having sex outside of her marriage that was raped. I saw that on the news the other day. Some of the stuff I can't even bear to share because I don't want to bring the energy into my life. But it's like, wait a minute, she got raped, she was married, she got raped, and she got charged by the judge for having sex outside her marriage.
I think you're talking about the Dutch woman who was on vacation in Qatar.
Yes.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Qatar.
Yep. I was just talking about that on social media the other day. She was there on vacation in Qatar, and she's a Dutch woman. And she was roofied in a bar or a nightclub, and she woke up in a strange place. She had been raped, and because it's illegal to have sex outside of marriage in that country, they charged her and threw her in prison, even though she was drugged and completely unconscious and raped. It's like pure insanity, and people don't even know that these kinds of things go on in the world.
Sure.
So, So, I'm trying to do my best to bring awareness to these kinds of crimes and, get involved with charity groups. And I also want other women to know that just because you have been the victim of a sexual assault or someone infected you with an STD, I try to tell them, don't let that define you. Don't let that destroy your life. And don't let that prevent you from finding happiness in your life, and because then the perpetrators win. Then the rapists, the sexual predators win. So I try to encourage women and empower women to be survivors, not to be victims, to be survivors, and to still find a way to lead a full life and a happy life. And, hey, I have an STD, I have a brain injury, I have all these horrible things going on in my life, but I'm still pursuing my dreams. I wrote my book. I'm engaged to a wonderful man who...
Yeah, tell us about your engagement. You found love. I mean, you're still getting happily ever after.
Yes, I met a man who, I met him a week before my lawsuit went public, and I was in a horrible place when I met him. I was in a severe, deep depression. My PTSD was horrible. I had really bad anxiety. I mean, I was a mess, to say the least. I met him at a girlfriend's bachelorette party I threw for her in Mexico. I was not well when I met him, and the next 6 months I was in and out of the hospital dealing with ongoing medical problems from, from the disease and everything that happened to me. But 6 months later, I finally agreed to see him again, and we started dating, and he knew my whole story up front, and he knew what happened to me, and, there was no way of getting around it because it had been made very public, and, he didn't have a problem with the fact that I have an STD, and he didn't have a problem with the fact that I've been a victim of a sexual assault. He was able to look past that and to see me for who I really am. And I tell other women, if someone truly loves you, they're not going to have a problem with the fact that you have herpes, okay? And if they do have a problem with that, then that person's not the right person for you.
No,
what if you
get
get cancer? What if you, in a freak accident, lose a leg? Are they going to abandon you then because they don't want to be with someone that, needs to get chemo? You want someone that's strong enough that's going to be with you through the good times and the bad times. So in a sense, having this illness or this STD is, from the way I look at it, it's a good way to weed out people that I wouldn't want to be with anyways, and that's what I tell women. It's a good way to filter out men that you wouldn't want to end up being with, because if they're not strong enough to deal with the fact that you have herpes, which can be managed, then you know what? When other things hit the fan in your relationship in life, they're going to be weak, and you don't need that.
They're going to bail on you. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that also shows their character if they really love you. Like, they're going to be like, look, okay, you know what? You get something irritating that may come out on you a couple of times a year. Great. Here's a pill. Let's go get married. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of, just meeting the right person that's going to love you regardless. That's what it comes down to. So you guys are engaged to be married. Have you set a date yet?
We are engaged to be married, but I don't want to get married until my trial is over with, because
I hear you.
I want that in the past, and the trial date keeps changing, and I just want all that behind me, so I'm not in any rush. And so yes, no date set, kind of on hold until the trial and other things in my life play out, which is fine. I don't feel any need to get married right away, especially when I'm still dealing with a lot of these ongoing issues from what happened to me. So when I get married, I want to start it on a clean slate. Make sure all the past,
all that stuff is behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
But see, so you did end up with your happily ever after. Your books have turned into movies. You're writing your trilogy. So things are happening for you, and that's the story that girls need to hear across the world. girls need to hear these stories. Women need to see this story and say, hey, just because this happened to you does not mean that you are not entitled to love. Does not mean that love can't happen for you. Does not mean that you can't live your happily ever after. None of that means that. It means that, yes, you can. And now you can help other women overcome, even if it's just public speaking and going to colleges and going to schools and going to networking events, where major women are major players. Women face so much that it's like, seriously, our work is far from over. It's far from over.
Exactly.
And I'm just really, really happy, that you are coming forward on this. Right now, it's like a huge era of women's issues that are coming forward, and women are suffering, and it's time for this to stop. It's time for people to stop taking rape lightly. I would love to see there be more laws and more, public acknowledgement that giving someone an STD is a crime, is considered a sexual assault, a sexual violation, and that needs to be put to the forefront of the news, just to give people an idea that this is nothing to be played with, because it's a whole psychological thing that goes into it. It's really detrimental that this needs to come out.
Yeah, exactly. I could not agree with you more.
Well, I'm so proud of you, Liz. You're such an inspiration. I'm so glad. This is one of my favorite interviews, I have to say. This is one of my favorite interviews, because it's talking about things that I've helped young women, I wrote an entire master's thesis, oppositional defiant disorder in teen girls, and, I have a nonprofit for teen girls, helping girls rule the world through entrepreneurship, strong-willed girls starting their own careers, doing the things that they love, turning their passions into profit, and, finding the guy of your dreams, and, even a portion of, I've written many books too, but just even talking about this with girls when I was, working as a teen therapist, it was like, I had these conversations, and it was just, I'm just really glad that, women are starting to come forward and say, hey, this happened to me. I'm not filthy. I'm not dirty. This happened to me. I'm not it. It's not me. I'm a whole human being outside of this incident, and this is how I overcame it, and this is how I beat it, and even if I didn't beat it, I learned to live with it, but I learned to still live the life of my dreams and not let it take over and succumb my life.
Exactly. And you're doing some wonderful work, too. So thank you for that.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, and I'm going to be putting this interview out there. And again, is there any last minute things that you want to share? You want to share how people can get in touch with you, get your book, go to your website, read your story?
Sure, yes. You can find me on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Liz Crokin, LizCrokin. Pretty sure there's only one Liz Crokin on Facebook, so you can message me on Facebook. My book is available on Amazon.com, Malice by Liz Crokin, and BarnesandNoble.com. And I guess the final thought I would like to leave with is just, I want women to know that crazy things are going to happen to you. There's going to be some horrible things that happen to you in your life, whether it's you're the victim of a sexual assault, or you get cancer, or, you break a leg. I mean, there's going to be bad things that happen to you. Don't let bad things that happen to you define you as a person. What's going to define you as a person is how you deal with those obstacles that you face in life, and how you turn a negative into a positive. And, if I can do it, I believe anyone can do it.
You're an overcomer. You're not even a survivor. You are an overcomer. Seriously.
Yes, I am.
There's survivors, and then there's overcomers. You are an overcomer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. Liz, I just want to thank you again for interviewing with us today. I can't wait to share this on the Huffington Post with all my readers, and just share this with the world. It's a very powerful story, and I'm just really glad that you took the time to interview with us today. And I look forward to talking to you again really soon, and hearing about all the amazing things that you're doing.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine, Liz, and I just pray that your journey gets easier and that you feel better as time goes on.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care, Liz, and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, dear. Bye-bye, hon.